I decided to put it all on one bet, one horse, in one horse race, the Cheltenham Gold Cup in March 2018. And if that horse won, I would have won that money back. I had the intention to pay everybody back. If it didn't win, it had literally become a matter of life and death, and I was going to go and kill myself.
So this is Peter Foster. I'm actually going to watch the interview. I watched this about 2 years ago, but he lost roughly £2 million from gambling a few years back, and now he's telling his story. So I'm just going to watch this live, and you can stay along and watch me react to it, because there's some things that I do want to point out through this video. Before we get into the video, I'll tell you who I am, just so you know that I'm not talking out of my ass. My name is JP. Back in 2020, I started the System Australia after making $300,000 from something called matched betting. Now, over the last 5 years, together with Tom, Steve, and the rest of the team, we've now built a community of 2,400 members, which is rapidly growing, and those members have made over $50 million from match betting. Now, this video is not going to be about match betting, but if you do want to learn about what we do, there's a link in the description to all of our stuff, our free content. You can learn what it is, and then from there you can take it as far as you like. Just know that I used to gamble too, and then I changed my mindset, my habits, my behaviors, because I worked out that match betting exists. This video is going to help you to understand why gambling is so toxic, and then from there, if you want to go down the match betting route like I did, you can as well. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the video.
I was one of those people that from a young age, I was obsessed with all sports. I didn't really care what I played as long as I was playing something. And it was all I was bothered about, really. It was all I wanted to do. And then it wasn't until I was 15 when kind of professional clubs started to take an interest in me, and I got put on the academy at Northamptonshire. That's when I thought, okay, this is really something that might happen.
You eventually ended up going to Durham University to play cricket there and study, of course.
Yeah, so I was playing full-time professionally after I left school. So I arrived at Durham in October 2006, year left on a contract at Northamptonshire, and life was pretty perfect. At that point in my life, I'd never placed a bet. I didn't know much about gambling at all. It wasn't something that anybody in my family did. None of my friends didn't have the same kind of access and exposure that you do now. And a few of the guys that I kind of got in with early on, they were into it. It was something that they did. And one Saturday morning, we walked into a betting shop in the middle of Durham. I sat down in the bucket chair in front of the machine. I had £2 in my pocket left over from a night before, and being an overconfident, arrogant, slightly naive 19-year-old boy that was at the time, I put my £2 in the machine. I put it on the...
What do you reckon happened? Do you reckon he won or lost? Because there's this thing, and I won't go into this too much yet, but there's this thing that I reckon is real, and it's called beginner's luck. I don't believe in luck, but I do believe that people quite often have early wins. Now that might be on horse racing, it might be on the pokies, it might be on a same game multi or a multi-bet, but these things ultimately happen to people more often than not, I believe. And maybe that's just because you hear about them more, because no one talks about whether they gambled and lost, because everyone usually expects that you're going to lose when you gamble. But when people have an early win, the results are fully disastrous, and clearly this has happened to this guy.
I put it on the only number that was different from all the others, green 0. It was the last number to come up, and I thought, what are the chances of it happening twice in a row? And 12 seconds later, £2 became £72, and my life changed forever. And that was my first bet.
The feeling of your first win will be something that you can't ever create, I don't think, because you have now realized that it is possible to make money off something that isn't normal. So for example, as humans, the way that we get paid generally, if you are not someone who owns a business or you're not a CEO of a big company, your way to make money is to sell your time for money. So you go and work, you sit there for 10 hours or 8-hour shift, and you get paid X dollars per hour. That's just how most people earn their money, right? So if there is a world where you can potentially get heaps of money without doing anything in terms of you don't sell your time for money, and there's a potential for that to happen, then of course people start to realize, fuck, well, if I could do that, that sounds cool. So the potential payout here is very enticing. It's very exciting, and the fact that you can put £2 down and essentially 36x the amount you've put on the bet, then all of a sudden, wow, this is really appealing. I could do this. So have a listen to what happens next. I'm pretty sure he says from that point on, that initial hook was what got him forever, even though it was only a £70 win.
I can't explain the feeling it gave me because I'd never had it before, and weirdly I'd never have it again. Yeah, it gave me a rush and buzz like nothing else. And people talk about drugs. That was definitely my drug.
I never got this to that level, but I definitely was gambling when I was younger. And to be honest, I actually saw this happen to a lot of my friends while we were in, I think it was either year 11 or year 10. I think it was year 11. So what happened back then was one of us came across the fact that you could open up a sports bet account underage, essentially. So I opened up a sports bet account before I turned 18, or potentially used one of my mum's or my dad's. And plenty of kids out there would be doing the same thing now, right? What happened was you could make a sports bet account and you didn't have to put any money in, but they gave you free bets without depositing. I'm 99% sure this was the case. So what they did was they gave you the bonus bets, they gave you the free bets, and all of my mates were betting on EPL multis, like English Premier League multis and things like that. And a few of them actually won. I remember one of them, Adrian, he actually turned, I think it was like a $5 bonus bet into like $900, or ran the balance up to like $700. But the funny thing was we couldn't withdraw it because it wasn't in our name, or they were underage or whatever it was. So what happened was now that they've developed this idea that they could turn real money into more money, they then wanted to do it more and more again. And that starts the idea in your head that you can create these opportunities or these positions where you can make a lot of money, even though realistically you're not going to make a lot of money. But the fact is your brain thinks that you can, and once your brain knows that there is a possibility there, your brain's going to tell you, hey, do that, do that, do that. And the more you do these things and justify it, the more likely you will do it more frequently.
The habit kind of progressed from this point onwards.
I guess I was different to most people at university because I had a lot more money than most people, because I was being paid to play cricket. I had a student loan like everybody else, a generous mum and dad. So I did have more money, and I thought to myself, well, I can still afford to do what everybody else is doing.
That's the second part that is a big red flag. Is firstly, you got your first big win. So for this guy, it was £70, and your first multi, or your first validation that you can actually win money in the short term from gambling, right? Everyone is playing to win. They're trying to win. If you think you're not trying to win, you're lying to yourself. You are trying to win your bets that you place. So in that instance, if you are able to win a bet and that bet returns a fair amount of money, for this guy, £72 from a £2 bet is a lot of money, right, at that age. In the future, it won't be a lot of money because you'll earn more and you'll be desensitized to this amount. But even when you're young, like $1, $2 bets, and they turned into $100, that's a lot of money. Like comparatively to the amount you've put on, that's a lot of money. So if you get validation, if you get confirmation in your head that, okay, cool, this is working, you've essentially sold yourself hope. And this is what the bookies do. They want you to think you can win. They want the pokies to go off, and they want these things to go ding, 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 ding. So someone in the vicinity knows that it's possible to win, because if it wasn't possible to win, then guess what? No one would play. So, and the same with Tats Lotto. Someone has to win the Tats Lotto, and someone has to win the jackpot. So if someone has to win, then everyone's going to keep playing. So the validation around the fact that these bets can win, and when they do win, they're just going to make you more addicted. So the next part is here. He said that he could do these bets and start justifying it because he can afford to do it. Now, affording to do it means simply that you're not going to go broke. Like, you don't have $0. You're not spending every cent. You can still eat. You can still survive. Technically, like, you could justify a gambling addiction 100% if you have a lot of money, because at the end of the day, if you're earning, let's just say $100K a year, you're earning $2K a week, and then you go and donate $20K a year on the punt, well, yeah, you're going to see it come out of your bank, but you can still afford it. I mean, you can afford anything. You can afford $50,000 a year on food bills and rent and all that, because you're still going to have enough money left over. But that's a dangerous, dangerous, dangerous game, because at the end of the day, if you're justifying it all the time, when you start getting more money and start getting paid more money, your habit will turn into just gambling more money. And that's what happens to a lot of people who justify, oh, it's only $5, it's only $10, it's only, but when they start earning double, then it becomes 50. And then when they start earning a little bit more, it becomes 100. because a habit's just there. Once a habit's there and it becomes an addiction, guess what? When you earn more money, you're just going to gamble more.
So who cares if I lose a bit gambling? The only thing about it from an early stage was it started to take up more and more of my time, and I wasn't always kind of totally honest about how much I was doing it. I'd go with my mates, there'd be a transparency around that, but then I'd also go 2 or 3 times at other points during the day on my own when they didn't realise.
When you gamble solo, massive red flag, massive red flag. If you're gambling solo, you need to think about what the fuck you're actually doing, because for some people, they say gambling's fun and it's entertaining to do with your mates and things like that. But if you're doing it solo, like if you're going off your phone and you're doing it in a discreet manner, you're doing it like hiding your phone and shit, like you're red flag, mass red flag. So please think about it if you're at this point already, because once you start isolating yourself, you become very lonely and then you have no one to speak to about it. And this is how this guy got to the point of where he lost 2 million, was by not telling a single person.
Whilst I was at uni in 2007, my cricket career ended, and I found that really difficult. That moment was tough. It hit me really hard, and I started to gamble more and more because I had the money, the time. It would actually replace sport in many ways. And then when I moved to London, it was a huge turning point, because I'd moved to London, I think, for the wrong reasons in many ways, because I'd kind of followed the crowd because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life if I wasn't playing sport, and it was what all my mates were doing. I thought it's the done thing to move to London, to work in finance, to try and earn as much cash as you possibly can. And a big change in my kind of mindset was I was previously motivated very much by sort of success and achievement. And now I was only bothered about money. And I think that was partly because I was gambling, but also because that was the culture and environment that surrounded me. It was what kind of made people tick in that world. And so actually all I wanted was as much money as I possibly could.
What was the biggest amount you won during this time period?
Having kind of received some good news at work, being told that I was getting a promotion, a bit of a pay rise, a Christmas bonus, all those things you kind of crave as somebody in that world. I went out with my mates to celebrate that night. Before I met up with my mates, I walked into the shop and I put the biggest bet I'd put on to that point. It was a football accumulator.
If you don't know what an accumulator is, it's a multi-bet. So he had 6 matches, I think. It's just about to come up. 6
matches, and 2 of the matches, there had to be a draw. 3 of the matches, both teams had to score, and one of the favourites had to lose. I put £500.
That's about $1,000 AUD, $1,000.
On this bet, I walked upstairs, I started getting drunk, my mates, and that night, £500 became £34,968. And that was the biggest single win that I'd had and ever would have. From that moment onwards, not only did...
So this here is possibly the worst thing that can happen to a gambler, is having a massive win, because yes, we spoke about the first win and the justification that you can win, but when you have a massive win, almost all of the time, this is the worst thing, because again, you have justified your behavior or validated your behavior, even though the behavior is actually wrong. In the long term, not many worse things can actually happen. And the reason for this is because when you win that money, a couple of things happen. Number one, you now think that is going to happen a lot more than it should. You have essentially hit something that is really, really low probability. Now, yes, it is possible. Yes, if you play the game, yes, you can hit these kind of payouts. And that is the whole trade-off. That is like, I can win, so why wouldn't I play the game? And a lot of people will be like, if I hit that, I would just stop there. Reality is you wouldn't, because what will happen is 2 things. Number one, you're going to get desensitized to the wins, right? The next time, you're going to try and win more, because now you've made $38,000 or £38,000 in this case, about $75,000 Australian. That's an annual salary. That is higher than the median annual salary in Australia. So you've just done that in one instance of placing a £500, $1,000 bet, and you've turned it into $75,000. So now you're like, well, what's the point in winning $500 anymore when I can make $75,000? So now the new benchmark is you winning 75,000. And the only way to win more or to get a bigger payout in the mathematics of gambling is to either put more on the bets or to bet higher odds. And if you do both of those, that's how the payouts go up. For example, if I put $100 on a $2 team, I can only make $100 from the $200 payout. But if I put $10,000 on that $2 team, I can make $10,000. And if I was to put $10,000 on a $7.50, I can get a return of $75,000, a profit of $65,000. As you can see, higher odds, higher stakes. So now that is a new benchmark, $75,000 payout. Wow. So that's now what I need to go and hit next time to get the same rush, to get the same feeling of reward, to get the same dopamine hit, to get the fuck you, I beat the betting company. I got to make more than 75,000 because last time the rush wasn't as good. I can't go down and make 10,000 or 5,000 or 500 because what's the point? And that's the dangerous game here, because when you're up at that level, there's a guy on Twitter, off topic, hit I think it was a $300,000 or $400,000 multi-win. And unfortunately for him, we all saw it at the time, but that guy was just going to always be a crippling gambling addict for the rest of his life because of how he used to think. He used to think that that was the norm. And so many people got around him, so many people painted him as a hero on Twitter, and this is like 3 years ago. And unfortunately, over the last 3 years, it's just been a big decline, and it's really hard to watch. And we called it out at the time and said, look, man, like publicly, we can see the red flags, and obviously people hate on us because we're just trying to bring down the hero, but it's like we're trying to actually make people aware of what these things are. And unfortunately, these people are the best salesmen for betting companies because they're essentially selling you the dream. Like one person out of millions of people will hit that, and it's not going to be you. So don't try and make that be you because the odds are just stacked against you. And all you're doing by trying to be that person is increasing the likelihood that you'll end up like a guy like this who loses £2 million, which is 4 million Australian.
Did I kind of feel like I was totally invincible? I thought it would happen every time I did it. When it doesn't, well, it doesn't matter. It's bound to happen again at some point. But actually the worst thing about it was that was when it became like a drug, because now if I didn't win that amount of money, it didn't give me the same rush buzz hit, just like a drug, and I wanted that every time I did it. So I started to put more and more every time I bet, bigger stakes. So I'd keep doing it, but also I started to feel guilty, embarrassed, ashamed, stupid, emotions that I wasn't used to dealing with. And I started to combat those by drinking even more alcohol, taking drugs, and life just started to spiral in a very, very different direction.
Yeah, so I've never experienced this because I didn't lose hundreds of thousands or anywhere near the amount of money that this guy did, and I was never really a gambling addict at all. I probably lost 3 to 4K in 4 years from the age of 18 to 22, and then I came across match betting, so I didn't have to worry about it. But we have spoken to tens of thousands of people over the last 5 years running this business, and it is very, very consistent, the correlations of gambling addiction, drug use, shit habits, poor diet, poor relationships, shit job, it all links. And you'll see very quickly that gambling might not be the cause. For some people, it's the way that they deal with other issues in their life. But when these things start going together, you'll notice that it's not just one thing that'll happen. Like you hear about the guy who loses his job and then his missus leaves him and then he gets fat. Like that's not a coincidence. He's not unlucky. It's the decisions that he started to make caused a snowball flow-on effect, which then caused him to get in the shit. And essentially now he's just in the rubbish and he thinks that he's unlucky or the world's against him, when in reality it was just the decisions that he made and allowed himself to get through that. And you actually have to work out of this, and it takes a while, but once you do, it's very easy to see the decisions that you do make that are positive get you closer towards your goals and further away from this, essentially a world where you don't want to ever be in.
I never told a single person in the world that I won that money that night. That was pretty hard. But I also lost it in a few weeks. And when it was gone, I wanted it back. Started trying to win it back. And then once I'd lost that money, I started to get into debt.
He's made £38,000, $75,000 off one bet. And then he's lost it all within 2 weeks. So the speed at which you bet, the frequency, the ceilings, the benchmarks just keep going up and up and up when you start to hit these crazy payouts. And then it's just a game of how much you're going to lose. Like the bookie's sitting there watching it, laughing at you. And he starts lying to people, like massive red flags, lying more frequently, not telling people, feeling these feelings of guilt. When you're at this stage, like you're starting to get into the shit. Bank loans, start to get into debt. And he's also mentioned the chase. I needed to win it back. Now it starts attacking your ego. Fuck, I had the $75,000 there. I lost it all. I need to get it back. Fuck. That's my money. No, you've lost it. It's done. And now you're playing a game of chase. And trust me, you won't win the chase. Something will happen. You either run out of money or you'll kill yourself. Probably those two things. Just interrupting again, you're obviously watching this on the System Australia YouTube channel. If you don't know what we do, we teach matched betting. That is the use of the betting company's promotion, specials, offers, and bonuses without gambling. Yes, using mathematics to make money over the long term. Over the last 5 years, our community has made over $50 million from matched betting across 2,400 members. If you are someone who wants to learn match betting, in the description of this video, there'll be a free course. Start there. If you have any questions, join our Discord, book a free call. We'll get on with the rest of the video. Hopefully you're taking something from it.
And I guess over a short period of time, that changed completely. Nature of my job was kind of walking from the office to the Lloyd's building. Historically, I would, on the way there, I'd stop, go into the shop for 15 minutes and have a bet. That now became times where I'd be in there for maybe 3-4 hours. I wouldn't do what I was supposed to do. I'd then make up a lie about what had happened. And rather than that happening kind of once a week, it started to happen 3-4 times a week to every day. By that point, I had 4 bank loans, I had 5 credit cards. I'd missed a couple of months rent payments, and financial situation was starting to become pretty dire, to tell the truth. I was starting to really struggle with my mental health, although I didn't want to tell anybody about that, of course. But yeah, financially it wasn't great. But if at that point I'd stopped, it wouldn't have been as bad as it ended up being, that's for sure.
That's the thing. So to this point, I don't know how much he's lost, but he does go on to lose probably 100x more. Don't underestimate how quickly this can snowball. This can go from a $5,000 loss or a $10,000 or $20,000 loss, which is not a lot of money, to hundreds of thousands and then millions by you making decisions to chase and to try and get it back. It's the worst thing that you can do in every aspect.
I'd put on about 3.5 stone. I had all
So now he's starting to get fat.
this debt.
Broke.
And I thought, what on earth are you doing? I decided to try and do something about it and leave London. At first, when I first became a teacher, I felt that that was the moment that gave me the opportunity to stop, and I tried. And whilst I still did it, I wasn't doing it all day, every day, and I thought I'd crack this problem. But then when the first set of holidays came along,
See, there's something that I disagree with when it comes to gambling, and in Australia we have something called the Bet Stop and the Gambling Helpline, and I truly don't believe that these hotlines and these organisations are actually doing as good as they could be. Now, I don't want this to come across as like we could do it better and we do it better, but if you don't deal with the mindset and the gambling thought process and the why behind why you gamble and the self-awareness of why you make decisions, if you're not self-aware when it comes to gambling and you don't know why these things are happening and you don't critically think and you don't like literally go and like, why did I do that? Think about it. Like if you don't think, which not a lot of people do, and then you just go on BetStop or you go and ring up the gambling helpline and they say close all your accounts. That's good. It's going to decrease the ability for you to bet for sure. But if you don't deal with the root cause of the problem, there is a very high chance that you're going to go back to it one day. And this guy here just thought that if he left London and went and become a teacher, good in theory, because if he's away from the environment, at the end of the day, your environment is what happens. Like if the environment's shit around you, you'll end up becoming shit. If you live in shit, you'll become shit. But if you don't deal with it, especially something like this, and you don't understand the why behind why you do things and you don't deal with it, you don't speak to people, then it's almost guaranteed to come back. And this is something that I'm really passionate about. Dealing with your issues are better than just putting a fucking Band-Aid on them and just turning them off. Yes, turning them off will help you to do it less in the short term and to create friction and barriers. But if you don't deal with it, you're most likely just going to get in bigger trouble later.
Things started to go wrong in my life. I just started to do it more and more. And eventually, I would probably spend 75% of my day gambling because
75% of his day gambling. that's fucked. You may as well wake up, gamble, go to sleep, repeat. And I'm sure that's what he did. And there are people out there that 100% do this. Because nowadays you can do it on your phone so easily. And this is what he started to say here. The phone access is so dangerous.
Could do it on my phone. There's always a reason to be on your phone. People thought I was on WhatsApp, social media, emails, all those things that people are, but I was just gambling. And so it meant I could do it whilst I was teaching. It meant I could do it whilst I was doing whatever else. And I just did it all day, every day. That's not an exaggeration. It just completely consumed everything. The salary I got paid would usually last the first or second day of each month. And then I'd think, well, how on earth am I going to pay off my debts, my bills, carry on gambling, live, afford anything? I turned to payday loans. I had 23 different bank and payday loans. And then I guess all those kind of avenues had been exhausted, and it was at that point that I started turning to individuals.
This is literally just what happens. And there'll be people watching this who have done this. Now it just becomes about survival. You have to get the money to get it back. And you'll just go to the next person and the next person and the next person and the next loan. You're just in a cycle of desperation. And instead of being like, how do I stop? It's how do I chase it? And how do I find the ticket to get it all back? And once you're in that state, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble. That's what this guy's in. It's so fucking, this is going on rapid, fast forward downhill. It's like a snowball literally with the most amount of momentum that it's unstoppable now.
And eventually, out of desperation, I'd make decisions at work that I'd regret forever because I would start to abuse my position as a teacher. I worked in a private school. I wasn't stupid. I knew how wealthy some of these people were, had access to that information, and I started to take advantage of it and lie to them. So I'd borrow money off parents of pupils that I taught. I lied to them why I needed the money. They respected me, were worried about me. They had the money to lend me. I promised to pay them back. I didn't pay a penny back. I'd gamble it all away. And when it all came to a head, it transpired that there were 113 different individual people that I'd borrowed money off, ranging from about 75 quid, which doesn't sound too bad, up to the best part of £30,000.
113 different people that he borrowed money off. 113 different people. That is a lot of people. Most people don't even know that many people to actually ask. 113 people as a teacher. These are the kind of things when you're in this position and you're in this state of desperation that you'll do anything to survive and to chase. People no longer become people. They're just objects that you can somehow solve your problem quickly. Now, obviously, this is extreme addiction. Like, this is at a level that's accelerating really fast, and this is not normal. It's not common, I would say. But to know that the more times you bet and gamble, you're putting yourself at a greater likelihood to become this, you need to understand that.
And I had £500,000 worth of pure gambling debt that obviously now
That's like $1 million of gambling debt in AUD. $1 million.
I'm spending the rest of my life paying back. And it started to take its toll. Living this double life was exhausting. And I actually knew in my heart of hearts it wasn't sustainable.
The thing about gambling addiction is let's just take alcohol addiction. You can even call eating addiction, drug addiction, smoking, and gambling. There's 5, right? We all know them. Out of all them 5, the one that has no physical effects is gambling. Drugs, you'll end up looking like a drug addict after a while. Alcohol, you'll end up with probably no liver left and more than likely either a lot overweight or in extreme cases you'll end up dead. Food, you'll become massively obese and obviously you'll be fat visibly. Smoking, you probably stink and maybe your teeth will look fucked. But gambling doesn't have any physical signs. And that's why it's so dangerous, because you can literally live a normal life and no one knows about what you're doing on your phone. Now, in the past, when there wasn't any electronics, you couldn't do this because you would always have to go to the TAB or the casino. People would visibly see you. But right now, in 2025, you can go on your phone and you can put money onto your phone with a click of a button, and you can lose hundreds of thousands of dollars. All you need to do is have an internet connection and an account linked to your bank. In fact, it doesn't even need to get linked to your bank. It can go to your Apple Pay, click the button, money's in the account, it's a number on a screen. Within 2 minutes, it's gone. And you can do this cycle over and over again, weekend after weekend, month after month, year after year. And all of a sudden, you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars that have just been slowly taken away from you over time. Now, when you live this double life and you hide from people, you can hide it. No one knows unless you tell them, or unless you have no money to pay for things and you're always asking for people, then the flags are there. But this guy's been able to hide it from everyone. And he's now borrowed money off 113 different victims. Crazy.
No way I could kind of keep up this pretense. Essentially, the school that I was working at became aware of this scale and the extent of the problem because they'd received complaints from all sorts of different people, and they'd kind of opened up an investigation. And at that point, I knew the consequences were going to be as bad as they could be. I knew that I was going to lose my house. I knew I was probably going to lose my job. There was no way I could carry on being a teacher there or anywhere else. And I knew I was potentially facing kind of criminal conviction. I might go to prison because I knew that I'd been kind of forging signatures on contracts, all sorts of different things. And after kind of receiving that news, I borrowed a sum of money off somebody I'd already borrowed money from, told them a lie I'm not very proud of. I said, look, I desperately need £10,000, but I promise I'll pay you back at the end of the week.
So this is the part where you start to make decisions that aren't logical. For example, faking contracts and just doing things out of desperation. And because you're in a state of manic and desperation, you start to put risky things at the forefront of your mind because nothing else matters apart from getting the money back. And the only way that you see that you can get the money back because you're that far in the hole is by winning it back, because that's the only way. Going back to the start when we spoke about you can turn a tiny amount of money comparatively into a large amount of money instead of now potentially having to work for 50 years to pay this back. Like, what are you going to try and do? You're not going to work for 50 years. You're never going to pay it back in your head. Like, that's 50 years. Whereas if you place this bet and it gets you out of jail, literally, then you're back. But unfortunately, it doesn't end well.
And that's because completely coincidentally, it was the start of the Cheltenham Horse Racing Festival, the biggest festival of the year.
So he's borrowed £10,000 off some random person at the school he's already borrowed money off, and now it's the biggest week of his year.
Yeah, my biggest week of the year. And I honestly believed I could turn £10,000 into $500,000. So I put on a
full-on delusion. Like, now you're in a state of delusion. I can turn £10,000 into £500,000. Like, brother.
Of kind of speculative bets that not even I thought had a chance. And I had one bit of luck on the Thursday that will never ever happen again, when one jockey and trainer won pretty much every race. And the £10,000 that I had started with was suddenly £58,000. I decided to put it all on one bet, one horse in one horse race, the Cheltenham Gold Cup in March 2018. And if that horse won, I would have won that money back. I had the intention to pay everybody back.
If that had won, I reckon this guy would have lost everything more. He would have gone again for sure. And he would have lost, I mean, he'd be in the same position net, but mentally he'd be worse because he would have lost then the 500K quickly. And that's, you can't come back from that.
Yes, I probably still would have lost my house and my job, but at least I could have paid everyone back and my life could continue. But if it didn't win, it had literally become a matter of life and death, and I was going to go and kill myself.
So from a £2 bet, we're now looking at someone killing themselves. It's pretty brutal how things can happen. Now, this is over a 12.5-year period, but £2 bet to kill yourself.
And I watched that horse race in a lesson. I had kids sat in front of me doing work. I watched a horse lose by a few lengths and my whole world came crashing down.
It's pretty sad, to be honest.
Did you reach out to anyone for help at this point?
I'd always seen a way out, and at that point there was no way out as far as I was concerned. I tried to essentially drink myself into submission, take an overdose of antidepressants, sleeping pills. I even tried to drive my car off the road in a kind of 48-hour period before eventually arriving at a train station, and was on the verge of doing the unthinkable. I was in floods of tears. I had commuters all around me.
This is what you call rock bottom. Like, you've now realised that you fucked up and there's no way out in your head. Now, obviously, this guy, maybe some miracle happened and he actually managed to get out. But please, if it gets worse for you, don't try to accelerate the worse by trying to chase it, because it'll get to this point and then you might not be here anymore.
Kind of looking at me, some of them laughing at me, thinking, what's wrong with that bloke, as I was stood there in a complete mess in floods of tears. But actually I didn't care, because I felt real. The only person I could bring myself to tell in a way that I felt was right was my best mate in the world, and that's my little brother. I didn't want to call him. I didn't want him to hit me in the state that I was in, because I think he might have reacted differently if he'd heard that. So instead of calling him, I sent him a message. I told him what I was about to do. And fortunately for me, having tried to call me, he then sent me a message, and that message saved my life. He said, look, tell me what the problem is, talk to me about it, and I promise I'll try and help. And as simple as it sounds, that's what I needed to hear, and it's what stopped me doing it. I took myself home. I came clean to my girlfriend initially, and then my parents, and that was so tough. But I think one of the things that I reflect on more than anything else is that their reaction was so different to how I thought it was going to be, how I'd played it in my head for the last however many years.
This is the thing. When you are isolated and you're alone and you don't speak to anyone, you are just fighting yourself. Now, of course, if you have to overcome something, you need to do it yourself. However, if you don't have the support around you, you'll start to make up things in your head. If you never speak to anyone about it, you're obviously just alone. But most of the time, if you do this and you're honest, something that I have spoken to and helped gambling addicts before in the past is by telling people that mean something to you, and specifically that you respect. Because there's certain people, there'd be 3 or 4 people in your life that you respect their opinion of you and their judgment of you, and you'll know who they are. So if you are in this position, the best thing you can do is tell those people, because it's like an ego hit for you. You're admitting that you have made a mistake, and that's hard to do. But when you do that, pick those people, 1 or 2 people, and just be like, this is what's happened. Can you help me? And I guarantee you 10 times out of 10, these people will help you because they care. And by you doing that, you're not just admitting fault. You're putting yourself in a position that now makes it harder for you to keep doing the bad behaviors, because now somebody else knows, and you know that they're going to ask you about it the next time they see you or every day. And now you've got an extra layer of accountability and an extra layer of assistance and support. And you're basically creating barriers now to do the bad things. Of course you can lie. Of course you can hide it. But someone out there, it's an extra layer that you have to do and consider. And that's an obstacle. That's friction. That's what you want to create. But believe it or not, when he told his family, no one disowned him. They didn't go mad, etc., etc.
They didn't disown me. They didn't go mad. They recognised I had a problem. They were glad I was still here and that I needed help.
Reality is they don't want him to go and commit suicide. They want him to be the person that they've known for however many years. So, of course, they're going to try and help him. Sorry to interrupt again, just popping in. I just wanted to say that if you are enjoying this or you think it's useful, make sure you give it a like. But more importantly, if you know someone who's gambling, send them this video so they know what can happen if their gambling habit turns into a pretty serious thing. Send it off to them, forward it on. At the very least, if they don't watch it, that's fine, but at least you actually tried to help someone else. Anyway, let's get back to the rest of the video.
I went to treatment on Harley Street in London, and those few weeks, months were really, really tough. I, like a lot of people, wanted a quick fix. I thought, oh, I'll go in there, I'll get treated, I'll walk out and I'll be cured.
This is what happens as well when you go down a gambling addiction rabbit hole, is that your brain starts getting rewired. So in the past, you would have been more likely to actually understand that good things take time, or to get a win in terms of a payout or a salary, you have to put the work in that takes months, years, whatever. But when you start gambling, you have the potential reward of half a second of action or 5 seconds of work on your phone with your fingers that can turn into $100,000, because in theory you can do that. And all of a sudden your brain starts to favor those instant gratification decisions rather than the actual pathway, which is guaranteed in the long term if you put the work in. But because it's so far away and so hard, it's like, well, I'm not doing that. I can just do this. And this is the same. Like, now he's been gambling for 12 and a half years. He goes to rehab. He thinks he's just going to walk in there and walk out and he's going to be cured. Unfortunately, no. You have to actually change the way you think to actually understand you've got a problem, to understand it's going to take years to overcome that problem, and to realize that nothing is just going to be a click of a button or a tablet or whatever, an instant gratification sugar hit that's going to fix all your issues. Unfortunately, that doesn't exist.
But actually, I had to learn pretty quickly that this was something that doesn't just go away. It's something that I manage essentially for the rest of my life. The process was tough. I had to sort of come clean to people, and having some of those conversations, particularly with people that I owed ludicrous amounts of money to, and had to admit that everything I'd told them was complete rubbish, and that actually it was gambling.
The thing is, when you're in the situation to ask them for the money, you're not thinking about this, because all you can think of is the fact that that bet's going to win. But if you thought, fuck, well, if I'm taking £10,000 off this bloke and it doesn't win, I have to pay him back £10,000. Well, brother, you better not do it, because it's not going to win. And then secondly, what are you going to tell him? You start going to hide, and then you go to someone else, and it just becomes a mass issue. But unfortunately, when gamblers are in this state, they don't think about the consequences. They only think about what's actually going to win. They think, oh, it's going to win. It's going to happen. This is it. But they don't think about this could lose. If you ask yourself, this is a good one actually, practical piece of advice if you are a gambler. If you're about to place a bet, ask yourself, not this could win and I'm going to get this much money, or I'm going to buy this holiday or this car. Think and ask yourself, if this loses, am I okay with that? If this loses, can I afford this? And not just afford it because you can justify it, but like, would this actually piss me off if I lost this bet? If the answer is yes, don't place the bet. Good piece of thing to make yourself. Every time you place a bet, do that.
Was so hard, but people have been a lot quicker to forgive me than I think I'll ever forgive myself.
Did you kind of figure out how much money you did spend on gambling over how many years?
Yeah, I had to go back through messages, emails, bank statements, gambling accounts. I think it transpires that over the course of those 12 and a half years, I'd transacted about £2 million worth of bets online, which was frightening in itself. The volume of bets, the amount of bets I was placing every day was mad. I had to go back through messages, emails, bank statements, gambling accounts. I think it transpires that over the course of those 12 and a half years, I'd transacted about £2 million worth of bets online, which was frightening in itself. The volume of bets, the amount of bets I was placing every day was mad. I had 76 different online accounts opened up in 65 different people's names. So just... Okay,
let's break this down. So he's lost, apparently in 12 and a half years, £2 million. Now he said transacted, so I'm not 100% sure if he lost the 2 million. I assume that it's correct. £2 million is about 4 million Australian dollars. So he's lost 4 million in 12 and a half years. So if you put this in pounds and double every figure, because that's roughly the rate, he's losing on average 160,000 a year and 3,072 a week. Pounds. Double that, you get AUD. So 6K a week on average. However, as you know, he hasn't got to the point of losing 6K a week from day one, because that's the average of essentially $4 million. I don't believe it's 4 million, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is 4 million. I think it could be 4 million. I don't know. But I tried to do some research, couldn't find it. Anyway, point is, this doesn't just start off as, £3,000 a week. It starts off small and then it grows and grows and grows and it literally compounds. So if you break this down, it's actually not that much money. Like 3,000 a week to lose is a lot of money, but it's actually not that impossible when you think about it. And a lot of people think that this will never happen to them. Like, that will never happen to me. And most likely it's not. You're not going to lose $4 million gambling. However, if you lose 100K, that is actually quite common over a 10-year period. That's only 10K a year, and that's only what's that, $200 a week, I'm pretty sure, just a little bit less. So $200 a week over 10 years is $100,000 lost. And that's an average of 200, which isn't that much. A lot of people at gamble just do that on a Saturday. Don't think that this is just like unheard of case. That's never going to happen to you, because even if it's a tenth of this scale, you're fucked. And you should be aware of this.
Just the sheer scale of everything was just way beyond what even I thought it was. And in my head, it was pretty big. Ultimately, nobody should go through what I did. And I often say to people, I'm one of the lucky ones because I'm still here. Too many lives are lost to gambling every year, and that just can't happen.
And you now do a lot of campaign work to help people struggling with addiction. What does it entail?
So I now work full-time for a kind of organisation that specialise in education and prevention. We use our lived experience to try and raise awareness of the problem, educate people about the dangers and pitfalls, reduce the stigma, help people kind of spot signs in themselves and other people.
Do you have any advice you'd like to give to someone who thinks they might be addicted to gambling?
Understand that it's very easy to lose control very quickly, and the sooner you can recognise that you've lost control and do something about it, the better. I have an issue with the fact that gambling is so ingrained in culture and society, and yet still a bit of a dirty word. It's still something that people don't talk openly about. People only ever talk about when they win, never when they lose. It's often something that people almost feel ashamed to admit that they do. I think I would have found it much easier to talk about a problem with drugs and alcohol and gambling. That in itself is not right.
So the thing is there, he's mentioned that it's actually less accepted when you say I've got a gambling problem. It's hard to admit it. And therefore, because of that, we have so many people that don't want to talk about it, and then they get stuck down this isolated pathway of, like this guy did, where he doesn't tell anyone for literally 12 and a half years. And then eventually it just blows up. And he's lucky to be alive, to be honest. Some other people aren't lucky to be alive because they're dead and gambling took their lives. But the two things that he said there was admit you have a problem straight up and tell people and be honest. And I guarantee you that if that's the case, you will have a greater chance of being someone who doesn't get to this point. He also mentioned that it's ingrained in the culture, and this is obviously a British guy, and it is ingrained in their culture too, but it's more controlled over there because they've realised that these kind of things have happened, so they've put controls and limits on the amount of advertising and stuff like that, whereas in Australia, it's a wildfire. Government doesn't give a fuck because they're earning so much money from the tax. Bookies offer more promos because that makes them more money. Like at the end of the day, people are like, oh, the government's trying to make a stop to this. It's like, no, they're not. Because the government's making shit tons amount of money. And when you follow things and you actually think critically and you look at it, I don't want to come across as like some theorist guy, but just break it down logically and be like, okay, cool. The government makes billions of dollars from gambling tax every year. Okay, cool. The bookies make billions of dollars from gambling every year. So, okay, how do they do that? Well, number one, advertising. Number two, sponsorships. Number three, it's everywhere, fucking everywhere. Influencers. It's just ingrained. Tats Lotto, it's on TV, it's on radio, it's on sponsorships of sport, major sporting leagues. Everything is just follow the money. So at the end of the day, if the government actually gave a fuck, they would obviously audit all this stuff and turn it all off. Now, I'm not saying they should do that because it would cripple so many different industries and businesses and stuff like that. But if they actually gave a fuck, they would do that. But they don't because they're getting paid. And that's how the world works. Follow the money. And if you don't like that, well, unfortunately, you've just been told exactly how it works and you refuse to believe it. Bad luck. But at the end of the day, the culture encourages it because we laugh about it. We get told that if we talk about it in this way, we're not fun at parties and it's not that deep. But it is that deep because that is why people lose $32 billion a year in Australia from gambling. That's not just online, that's pokies, that's casinos, that's everything. $32 billion a year Australians lose to gambling. That means the gambling companies are making $32 billion a year across all of them. And that means the government is cleaning up. So if this was to be solved, it's never going to get solved because humans are diseased in their head the way that they think. They're obsessed with instant gratification. The addition now of phones and apps and quicker betting and same game multis and all these things, you have no hope unless you understand the game to actually not lose money over time. You're going to lose. So if you're not aware of this, honestly, you've got no hope. Good luck to you. If you're a punter in Australia that doesn't think, if you're a punter in Australia that has no betting IQ, you're fucked. You're going to lose heaps in your lifetime. If you're someone who can control yourself and bet $5 a weekend, fantastic. And of course, I've said this through this video that if you are someone like that and you can control $5 and you've done that for years, fantastic, good on you. But people do think that that's going to be them, and then they eventually gamble $50 a week and then $100 a week and then $200 a week and then $1,000 a week, and then they become gambling addicts and they lose their house and whatever else. This guy here didn't start from gambling $5,000 every bet. He started from £2. £2, it's $4. And he won big early, which actually created his gambling addiction.
Reaching out for help is tough, but tell someone. It'll be the best thing you ever do. One of the things I had to learn over and above everything else was that it was about managing this for the rest of my life. And I now am able to do that. Every day that goes past, I feel like I'm further away from a bet, which can only be a good thing.
Full respect to him, because he's now helping others and sharing his story, and he could have been selfish and just clocked it and not told anyone about it, and he's using his story now to help others, and I respect that enormously. So good on you, mate. And if you have watched all of this, I hope that you can use that as inspiration to not go down that rabbit hole. I'm not going to tell you anything about anything else because I've said my piece. I probably spoke for too long through that interview, but yeah, I've spoken to thousands of people and hundreds personally that I've changed their mindset, and then tens of thousands that have changed their mindset indirectly through our content, and our business has changed, I would say, 50 to 100,000 minds around Australia over the last 5 years, and lives would be in the tens of thousands. And we want to continue making people think about the way that they bet, making people think about the decisions they make when it comes to betting, and being aware of how it all works. Because a lot of it is just awareness. When you know how the industry works, and there's so many people out there that just don't understand how the odds work. They don't understand that the betting company is giving you an inducement or an incentive because they want you to get addicted. The free bets, the bonus bets, they're there to make you get addicted. My friends at school got incentivized to bet on Sportsbet at the age of 17 because Sportsbet was handing them free money without them having to put in any money. That is creating habit and creating activity and making you do these things with fake money, which then make you do that with real money when you can do it with real money. It's just psychology, right? Anyway, I'll leave it there. I don't know if this is a type of content that people want to watch, but if it is, please leave a comment. Thought it was a load of shit, tell us as well. If you want to follow us, there's plenty more of this in a different setting, plenty of podcasts. And obviously, as a business, we teach something called matched betting. So we don't teach gambling. We don't encourage gambling. But if you're someone who has a strong mindset, because of all of the gambling that exists and all the people that are losing, the promos that are used to make people lose are the reason why matched betting can exist. And if you take advantage of those promotions, you can make money like our community has done, like I did, set up this business, and our community has now taken over $50 million off the bookies across our 2,000 members over the last 5 years. And honestly, that's a conservative estimate. I'd say it's rapidly growing towards 100 million. So do whatever you want, but at the very least, I'm not encouraging match betting here. All I'm saying is stop gambling. If you can, ask for help. Think about your decisions. If you have learned something, chuck it in the comments. It'll help someone else. If you haven't learned something, tell me as well. See you at the next video. Cheers.